NFC West it is, and we'll start off with the Los Angeles Rams, the reigning Super Bowl champions. It's difficult to go positivity with a team who obviously have just won the whole thing and say, well, you're going to go and win it again. But in a weaker NFC than AFC, there's no reason that with the talent on this team, they can't do that. Big positive coming out of camp has apparently been Allen Robinson. Just finally, he gets a preseason working with a quarterback who knows what on earth they're doing. Second year with Matt Stafford, working with Sean McVay. The reports are that they've moved from previously with Jared Goff running just everything as simplified as possible, everything under center, to kind of going exactly the opposite last year with Matt Stafford to appeal to his skill set. And now they're trying to mix the two, a bit more of a blend, make it look more like the Sean McVay offense of old with the Stafford elements mixed in there. If Robinson looks as good as that, they'll probably end up signing Odell Beckham in November when he's back from that knee injury as well, to add that extra in there as well for very cheap. Yeah, they should be really good on offense. Left tackle, maybe a question mark. Pass rush, maybe a question mark. But I can't see a reason that this isn't a double-digit win team this season, Ollie.
No, you pretty much said it all, really. Yeah, you're right about the pass rush. They could have done with someone like Khalil Mack, who went to the other LA team. But
I know that they ignore the salary cap entirely in that part of Los Angeles, but I'm not sure they could have afforded that as well.
But I think the Allen Robinson thing is a real positivity, especially for him, because we've seen when a really talented player is in the wrong organization and they just kind of fade away, like Matt Stafford. As soon as they go to a proper organization with proper pieces around that are built for actually winning and want to win, then they flourish. And you could only imagine that's what Allen Robinson's going to do, especially when Cooper Kupp is being double covered elsewhere. You can't double cover both of them. So a huge benefit for that receiving core and for the offense in general to have Allen Robinson there.
I think there are question marks. I think you mentioned some of them, Will. Obviously, Stafford's elbow is a Stafford's elbow. Sounds like a kind of a place near Porthcawl in Wales. Oh, hello, have you been to Stafford's elbow? I think, but I think Stafford's elbow is an issue. I think Joseph Noteboom obviously replacing Andrew Whitworth at left tackle. I think, the lack of pass rush and whether they're going to have to sort of falsely create pass rush, whether that's, linebackers like Ernest Jones blitzing, big responsibility on the shoulders of Leonard Floyd, obviously, guys like Ashawn Robinson, Ernest Brown, these kind of guys, obviously Bobby Wagner, if he can return to form. And I it's an interesting signing, but, Wagner fell off significantly last year. And people look at the tackle situation. I was speaking to Rob Stanton, who's a big Seahawks fan that we all know. And Rob was saying, the defensive line, interior defensive line of Seattle was absolutely horrendous. It was the worst he can remember, almost historically, just a terrible line. And you look at Jordan Brooks and Wagner had so many tackles. Well, it was because, nobody on the defensive line could stop anybody. Yeah, for me, I think that the reason to be cheerful, there are lots of reasons to be cheerful when he's a Super Bowl champion. So I'm just going to throw a name out there, which is Lance McCutchen. He's an undrafted free agent wide receiver from Montana State. He's absolutely blown up in camp. Sneaky speed, is a contested catch winner. He's 6'3", 202 pounds. He's had 10 catches for 183 yards, 2 touchdowns in 2 preseason games. But actually, most of his damage has come against the first-team guys because he's had to start. He's been forced into starting because Cooper Kupp hasn't played a lot, because obviously there's been a knee issue with Van Jefferson, and that injury could linger. I think he's going to be a factor in a team that doesn't necessarily need more weapons. But if he can turn into the sort of guy that Sean McVay, and McVay has been raving about this kid. He got the game ball and got to break down the team after the game the other night. He took Derek Stingley, the third overall pick of the Texans, to absolute town in the game against Houston the other night. So all he's done is show up, going against Jalen Ramsey in camp and holding his own. Look out for Lance McCutchen to be an early name that people start talking about. You can just hear Chris Collinsworth talking about him in the broadcast. This guy, because he's a Collinsworth kind of guy in terms of his physicality and his his length and those sorts of things. So look out for Lance McCutchen. Lots of reasons to be cheerful in LA, but this could be a little bonus reason.
Shall I do San Francisco? Should I let someone else do it?
No, you do it. Come on, be positive. Tell us why San Francisco are going to make the Super Bowl that I heard you say that they would do on another podcast.
if three key rookies turn preseason form and camp form into being decent starters, Sam Womack at nickel corner, who was so good in pre-season that they just cut Darquez Denard before they even got down to the 85, let alone anywhere near the 53. Spencer Burford in at right guard, the fourth rounder, who has just looked unreal out of a small school, and
he was great at the Senior Bowl. I thought he was a really good pick.
As a interior line which has big question marks, probably the biggest question marks of anywhere on that 49ers team. That's big. And then Drake Jackson is a pure traits kind of guy, but he looked superb against the Vikings, both in the preseason game and in the camp meet-up between the two. If those three translate that, then this should be a team that should be talking about Super Bowl aspirations. Trey Lance is obviously the biggest question mark, but the 49ers had the second best yards per attempt in the NFL over the last 2 years with Jimmy Garoppolo under center. They've now got a guy that can throw it deep with accuracy and power. That excites the hell out of me. He's looked great in camp. He looked great in preseason games. Does that translate? Is it going to work? I don't know, but this is probably the most excited I've been as a 49ers fan going into a season, which, considering that there's a relative unknown starting at the most important position in sport, I guess speaks to positivity.
Yeah, I would say Lance comes out of an offense, a very, very run-heavy offense at North Dakota State. Threw the ball 322 times in his career, in his life. But he came out of a very, very, very run-heavy offense. And in Elijah Mitchell, Trey Sermon, Jeff Wilson, Tyrion Davis-Price, who I absolutely love, the kid out of LSU, Deebo Samuel, whether or not he's going to run the ball out of the backfield on jet sweeps, those sorts of things. You have a running game that is built to take pressure off the shoulders of Trey Lance, who, of course, has got great wheels himself. He is obviously going to have to throw the ball, but you are looking at Brandon Ayuk, Deebo, Ray
and Ayuk have had the most unreal chemistry in camp as well.
McCown's had a really solid camp. Juwan Jennings, who's a good receiver. Danny Gray, the speedster out of SMU. Ross Dwelly, obviously at tight end. George Kittle, the best tight end in the NFL. If he can do that, then I think this team could go a long way. I do worry a little bit about the secondary. I do worry a little bit about the corners. And I do worry a bit about the interior of the offensive line. Great at tackle with Mccutchen, Trent Williams. Like we talked about Spencer Burford. The center worries me. Left guard worries me a little bit. But, if Trey Lance can be the quarterback that the 49ers believe he can be, then, in a roughshod NFC East, they could go a long way. NFC, sorry, they could go a long way.
Is there any worry that Shanahan could Guardiola it in a final and overthink and
No, I don't think they're that good. I think they're a good team. I don't think that this is not an all-star team. You're essentially relying, as positive as Will has the absolute right to be, because the team is a good team. There's lots of good players, but you are essentially relying on a kid who played at the FCS level. Only started 16 games, was it? I think in his plus one in his senior season.
It's all right because Lewis Riddick's comparing him to Pat Mahomes, so don't worry about it, guys. I mean, we're going to be fine.
He's only ever completed 208 passes in his life. Yeah, obviously that doesn't take in high school, but in terms of 3 years in college, he has completed 208 passes, and that is it. He is not used to throwing interceptions. He's only ever thrown one interception in his college career in 3 years. What's going to happen when inevitably, because this is the NFL, interceptions start piling up? How is he going to deal with those situations? Yes, Nick Bosa is great. Yes, Eric Armstead is great. Javon Kinlaw, an ascending player. Great special teams in terms of Robbie Gould being a great kicker. But Jimmy Ward's a great player. If Talanoa Hufanga can stay healthy, that's a plus. But, I do have question marks that, I hoped Ambry Thomas would take a step up, and he kind of hasn't. Fred Warner, obviously, is a stud. Azeez Al-Shaair, one of the most underrated players in the NFC. But it's all kind of going to come together. And you just, you are putting all your eggs in the basket of a kid who's only ever completed 208 passes in his life. So that's a big question mark.
We need to pick up the pace a little bit. No offense to the teams that we've still got to go, but I'm going to come to one of you each on the next couple of teams. I'm not going to speak on either of these teams because I don't feel like it would be fair. Do I try and get Simon Clancy to say positive thing? Give me one positive for the Arizona Cardinals going into this year, Simon.
The positive thing for me for the Cardinals is that it can only be a matter of time before the Cliff Kingsbury experiment is over. I mean, he's never been above 500 in the second half of the season. Texas Tech 2014 started 3-4, finished 1-4. Texas Tech 2015 started 5-2, finished 2-4. 2016 started 3-4, finished 2-3. 2017 started 4-3, finished. You know where we're going, right? Last year started 7-0, finished 3-5. I mean, he is a disaster in the second half of the season because he runs such simplified high school offenses that teams can work out. So for me, the biggest plus is that the Cliff Kingsbury experiment will be over soon and they'll get a real head coach in.
I'd be minorly concerned if I was the Cardinals that it flips this season because of DeAndre Hopkins' availability and that they're better in the second half of the year and somehow they use that to justify, because of the massive length of contract they've given him and Steve Keim, to somehow keep him around another year. There's a lot to like about this Cardinals team from talent perspective, particularly obviously the quarterback. You know that I don't believe in the coaching staff either. This has been a long discussed topic. Hopefully that's something that they move on from. Seattle Seahawks, Olly Hunter.
Oh man, it's a hospital past this, isn't it?
They're coming to London. They're coming to Germany, so that's exciting.
Oh yeah, okay. There's a positive. I get to see the Seattle Seahawks in Germany, in Munich. I'm going to Munich. There's a positive. They've got a really experienced Super Bowl winning head coach. That's a positive. They've managed to keep Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. That's a positive. I'm not sure there's much else that you can really be so positive about when it comes to the Seahawks, because they've lost that quarterback, their quarterback, the franchise quarterback that should have stayed. And it just looks really, really bleak when you've got Drew Lock and you're choosing between Drew Lock and Geno Smith.
On paper, they did have a good draft, though, Simon.
Yeah, I just throw in young pairs on the team. You go through that team, you look at the tackles, Charles Cross and Abe Lucas, studs. I think they'll be studs. Kenneth Walker, Rashad Penny at running back. Darryl Taylor and Boye Mafe at edge. You've got Jordan Brooks and Vi Jones at linebacker. And the two corners, the two rookies, Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant, have been spectacular in training camp, like properly spectacular. So there's some unheralded young players on this team. I don't think they're very good. I think they'll be in the mix for a quarterback next year. It might be Jimmy Garoppolo. We'll see how that plays out. And the sort of drama that will bring with the 49ers being in the same division. But there's some young talent and they come in pairs on that Seahawks team.